we've got a special guest today. We got Jason Dady.
Yeah.
An amazing chef out of Texas. We wanted to hear his history and where he's at right now, what he's doing, and he's got some amazing things coming up.
Mexico City, man, an emporium of all what you love about Mexico, and street tacos, margaritas, agave.
You're shooting for March or April?
March 2025.
That's it. The vision, the drive, the desire to become a great chef, a top chef in the nation. There have been some great somms out there that I've had the pleasure to work with and everything, but then, I always try to go in and like be the secret shopper, right? And I'm sure you do too. You go to a restaurant, and you're just like, I'm just a, regular guy. And just seeing where you're seated, what the service is like, what the food is like, all that stuff, and the somm portion of it was always my favorite experience because I could act like the biggest dumbass about wine and look like I'm trying to impress my girlfriend or wife or whatever. And it was just one at a time, not girlfriend and wife, but it was like I could talk enough to get them down a road and then see what they would do. It's like, oh, you're taking advantage of me rather than, oh, you're actually trying to discover my palate.
And it's funny because like for us in our training program we don't have somms, never have had sommeliers, but what I try to teach my staff is like, you've got to find the happy medium for the client that is in front of you, right? Like the worst thing that you can ever do, in my opinion, at a restaurant, trying to sell somebody a bottle of wine, you're like, oh, we're kind of interested in a bop, right? Oh, we like a Napa Cap. Okay. To pitch them your highest price wine is an immediate insult to 99.9% of the people that you're talking to. It's like it's like the metaphor would be like trying to hit a grand slam every single time you're up for bat when you're the leadoff hitter and there's nobody on base. It's like, and so for me, like kind of like you're saying, like my style when I go out to a restaurant, I'm like, hey, you know what? I want your best bottle of wine that's $75 to $100, right? Because then I really know what you know, right? Like, I own restaurants, right, for 25 years. Like, I'm not here to drop $5 on a bottle of wine tonight. I want to know, like, what's your cool, quirky bottle that I'm going to really like? That's $100 because that takes talent to be able to be like, hey, man, here's a really badass bottle of Cab Franc for $85, man. I love it. It's from bop.
Yeah.
And then now I'm engaged with you. Now we have a conversation. Now I trust you, right? Because trust is the most important issue when it comes to service versus being like, oh, well, we have this, but like this $200. I'm like, bro, I told you the budget was $100. Like, I know my budget.
They come back with the upsell. Yeah.
Well, because I think knowing your client's budget, and what I try to tell my staff is like, it's okay to have an honest conversation with your client. What is your budget? Get over that fear, and you'll have a better experience with the client because, again, it goes back to nobody wants to be pitched a $250 bottle of wine if their budget was $75.
Yeah.
It's better to be like, hey, guys, welcome in. What do you guys typically drink? What brands you like? Is there a price point you want to be around? And most people will kind of be like, oh, you know what? We drink Quilt at home quite a bit, right? And, our budget's typically around $100 to $125 at a restaurant. Oh, cool. Awesome. Let me show you this, man. We've got and that trust then parlays almost more often than not into a second bottle, right? Because now you're like, oh, you're not trying to just pull one over on me. Because there is a fear of clientele that think somms are pulling one over on them, right? Like
there is that. I would say that perception is more common than not. Yeah. But I think I like the trust comment you're talking about because I do see that in whenever I'm at a restaurant and see the service, building that trust, and that trust I think not only goes to the point of being more comfortable, ordering more things, sticking around for dessert, getting another bottle of wine, but coming back.
Well, and the thing that I've noticed, and again, I'm very jaded about it because I understand how the wine business works, especially within the wine industry, is that, there's a restaurant in particular that I know of that they do a very high volume wine sales, which means they have access to some wines that a lot of other restaurants might not have. And the thing that they're privy to is what is called the closeout list. Right?
Oh,
right.
From the distributors.
Right. Right. So you know how to navigate a closeout list.
Yeah.
And you're buying a bottle of wine that nobody's ever heard of. And it's a high quality wine, but maybe the distributor lost the supplier, whatever it might be. and now you buy the bottle for $20 and you're charging 200, you're taking your margins to the roof. But boy, that's a real interesting dynamic. Like, how do you do that? And it goes back to, well, is the som pushing this to me because they really like it? Or is the som pushing that to me because they bought it for 20, they're getting a bonus based off of it's a real dynamic web of hand selling wine in a restaurant.
And so you do see other restaurants really relying upon the closeout list.
There's one in particular I know of that does
like almost all their businesses.
A lot of it, yeah, for sure.
God, that's a lot of changing out of the wine list too. I mean, that's a lot of instability on the wine list, which I'm not a fan of, obviously. I like when people have stability on their wine list.
But it's more like the hand sell, right? It's like if the som is supposed to be the steward of your experience with wine, and if you're, like you said, you like to go in and be kind of a silent shopper, and you go in there like, hey, what do you guys have? Like, oh, I've got this great, ba 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 ba. Okay, we're doing it for 85. You're like, oh, damn, that's a really good price. But then you turn around and you find out from your distributor, like, oh, yeah, we have that on a closeout for $15 a bottle.
Yeah.
Then you're like, well, that's kind of shitty of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you also said something that was maybe even like a new mantra, discover your palate. And I think that's really important to think about is the importance of discovering, and this is to the som point, the discovering it together with your guest, with them, not discovering it for them, not, going off of this list or something, or you're just trying to upsell them or anything like that. Like really have fun into getting to know them and what they're trying to find and discover it together. I think it's a great point that you made.
Yeah. Well, I look at restaurants and wine, and I've said this a few times before, but they're the two most related consumer products in the market, right? They have the highest volume of options. There's not another product that I can think of, right? They have the easiest trade out. You don't like a wine off the shelf that you purchased and brought home. You go back to that same store, you got another 1,000 or 14,000 options. And so it's like you got to hit on everything every time in wine and in restaurants. And I told you I delved into the restaurant business for a little bit, tried that out. Fuck. It's a killer, man. I swear. And I wasn't even managing it, but it was still like making me pull my hair out.
Yeah.
So there's an art form to that, just like there is with anything else. But it's really making sure that all the basic components are covered and that you're going deep into, just like wine, just going deep into those details so that people see it and appreciate it and come back. Because if you don't have return customers, I mean, if everybody in, whatever, Texas bought one bottle of our wine and didn't ever buy it again, we'd be out of business.
Well, we talked about today. You got to give them what they want until you can give them what you want. And that's an important mantra in the restaurant industry in particular. Like, if young chefs are only interested in like throwing their ego on every plate, but the guests aren't feeling it, okay, everybody's going to come once. You don't survive in the restaurant industry by people coming one time.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have repeat, everyday clientele that are at your restaurant 3 times a month, right? You can get a customer in your restaurant 3 times a month, man, you've got a great business model, because the odds of people eating at one restaurant 3 times a month is so significantly low.
Yeah, I bet. It's got to be, what, like 0.5%?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, on average, the amount of seats you fill, that's got to be a super low percentage. So, and that's where you appreciate those customers.
Period. I mean, at the end of the day, whether it's the price of your wine, the price of your cocktails, the price of your pasta, do you have something casual? Can they bring their kids? I mean, it's multifaceted. And for us, like, our business models are so vastly different. I mean, from Texas barbecue counter service to a fast casual pizza restaurant that we order at the counter to a, Northern Italian steakhouse of, with a $350 bistecca on it, right? Like,
yeah.
And so for us, we're trying to always like understand, like, who's our client? Are we giving our client what they want? And are they returning? Because the return, I think, is so incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about this too, that with having so many great concepts that you developed in all these great restaurants and everything like that, I mean, you definitely get a lot of people coming to your restaurants, and a lot of celebrities you'll get to visit your restaurants as well, artists and known in the industry. You've also had, but I thought it was interesting too, because I came across the Housewives of Orange County, so that was like an episode. What's that like to experience some kind of thing like that when they drop in and
appreciate the press.
Yeah.
I know,
dude. I've done shit in my life.
I know you've had experience with too. I wanted to get.
I think the key is just being true to yourself, but also understanding in today's world, social media is incredibly important, and marketing your brand in different areas, whether that's TikTok or whether that's Instagram or Facebook or X. You've got to get outside of your comfort zone of, I think influencers is probably the greatest equation of that, right? Like for years, everybody was like, fuck influencers. Like, give me a break. You just want a free meal, right? And now we realize, nope, they're powerful.
Yeah.
And they're important. And they can spread the word probably faster than anybody else in today's social world. And so you start to see these influencers that are incredibly powerful. For us, we feel fortunate. If the Real Housewives want to come film in our restaurant, hell yeah, that's great. It's a great story. And, like the episode we were on, my mom's in the background, my wife's in the background, my management team's in the background. So, for us, I think that's like something that's tangible for them that makes it cool and fun. When it comes to celebrities, I think for us, our rule of thumb is always this, like, the idea of VIPs in restaurants is a very interesting argument, right? Like, there's some restaurants that are like, everybody's a VIP, right? I think it's a stupid argument.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not true. Like, some people you need more privacy, need more X, Y, and Z, and what it might be. But for us, we've always just been like, listen, they want to be treated just like everybody else. They don't want special treatment for the most part. But San Antonio is such a unique market. I mean, San Antonio is a very chill place. I mean, it's a very kind of just casual place to live and work. So for us, we've just always tried to treat them with respect and privacy and go about our business. And if you do that, you've never, other than like the Real Housewives, because it was aired on national television, we don't ever like outwardly promote people that have come in our restaurants. Like, because I think it's cringe. I think it's cringe when somebody's like, takes a picture like from the corner of their restaurant and it's a celebrity in the corner and like they're like, look who dined with us last night. I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, they were just eating privately. Like, well, you need promotion off of that. Like, because to me, I just think it's like, I don't know. And maybe that's the old school in me. Like, that's probably me still holding on to like the old school world. But like, listen, man, we are here to do a job. Our job is to take care of them and treat them with respect, but treat them like they're everybody else and give them the privacy that they request. And if we do that, then they'll come back or they'll tell other people that they had a good experience with us. But it wouldn't be any different if somebody's like, hey, we need a private entrance and a private exit. No problem. We can do that too. But I'm not putting that on my Twitter page. I'm not putting that on Facebook. Like, oh, look, I snuck somebody in the back. It's like, I think it's a unique dynamic.
Yeah, well, and going back to the influencer thing too, and food critics, I'd like to know how important they are now compared to crowdsourced data, like, I mean, you could say Yelp or whatever, and maybe the different levels or calibers of your restaurants and what's important versus what's not important to think about. Because, the restaurant world was really the first world to have to experience this myriad of people's opinions coming out and just being like, thanks to Yelp, I can talk shit or I can give praise any day of the week to anybody that I want, whether I went there or not.
Yeah.
And you were you were working through the thick of that, right? You come out now and it's like you're already expecting that.
Right.
So how do you see for each kind of level of fine dining, casual, fast casual, whatever, what's important to think about if there's somebody out there that's wanting to get in the restaurant world? What's important to think about at each one of those levels? The importance of influencers, food critics, or crowdsourced data like Yelp.
I think the most important, I know for me, the most important thing was like, I always stuck to my guns.
Yeah.
You have to be relentless in that pursuit of your end goal. And it does not matter how great it is or how bad it is. You're going to get positive and negative feedback from a lot of different directions. There's no doubt early in my career, quote unquote food critics, whether that's mass media of your local newspaper, were certainly the most important at the time. I don't necessarily think that they're the most important now, but that doesn't change the fact that they're still incredibly important. I think it's like an even playing field. I think right now it's a completely even playing field. I know, for instance, we just opened 2 restaurants in the last 8 weeks. And there's no doubt we take the pictures of the local food critics and give them to all the team and say, when this person comes in,
Yeah.
you need to know who they are, because you want to put your best foot forward, because their reach, because even now the newspaper that writes a review, then they have their own TikTok page, they have their own Facebook page, they have their own Instagram page. So their reach is probably even more now than it was 15 years ago, right? Where it used to be only in print. When it comes to influencers, you have to lean in. You have to be partners with them, and I want to be partners with them. And I'm closer now with influencers in San Antonio than I've ever been in my life. Like, I want them to love my restaurants. I want them to know that I want them to be successful. I want them to have, honestly, the first view, the first taste, the first this, because they're going to go out there and make me look really good. They're going to be like, wow, we just had a great experience at Roca and Martillo, and look how awesome this place is. When it comes to, so the third component is like the online, like crowdsourcing type of stuff. That's the fool's gold, right? And it truly is. And it's a dangerous thing to talk about. It's a dangerous thing to say it. I'm not discounting anybody's opinion. Your opinion, your perception is your reality, right? And that was kind of how we've always tried to train our management team. It's like, that's their perception, that's their reality. They came in, it took too long to get their drink. The food was too salty. Do I agree with it? Maybe not, but that's their perception, so that's their reality. But if you're focusing on and hyper-focusing on, in today's world of online reviews, whether that's Yelp or
Google, whatever. I mean,
you name it.
They've all got,
Because it's so easy to, I think, and I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, right? I use Google reviews if I'm traveling, but I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking for affirmation more than I'm looking for advice, right? Like, oh, like I've heard about this restaurant, and where am I going to eat in Napa tonight, right? So I might just Google best restaurants in Napa, and I have a pretty decent idea of what I think is good or bad, but I can look at the first 3 reviews, and I'll tell you what I do. I only look at pictures. I don't read the reviews. I don't care somebody's opinion. I can look at a picture of a food and be like, that looks good to me, or that is real talent, or that's real finesse, or that's real skill. So I always, that's for me the way I travel. I look at the pictures of the food, because if you're looking at it, that means you've already eaten out at multiple places in your life. You're not you're not under a rock. So you know what you like. You know the way that things should look, the way you think they should look. And so by looking at the pictures, I can be like, oh, that looks good. Like I went to Vancouver in like February, right? And there was this Thai restaurant, or we wanted to go have Thai food because Vancouver is a really great Thai food scene. And I looked at one restaurant, didn't read the reviews, looked at the pictures, like, not vibing with that. Found another restaurant, looked at the pictures, like, that looks legit. And that's where we went. And we had the most amazing meal. And I made the judgment based off of a Google review, but only because of the pictures, not because of what somebody said about it, right?
Yeah.
Because listen, at the end of the day, and like, listen, I own a Texas barbecue restaurant, right? It's the hardest restaurant we run. It's practically impossible. It's the most popular food in Texas, right? I mean, everybody knows that outside of, like, great Mexican food. But it's like, it's not uncommon for one person in line to tell you it's the best barbecue they've ever had, and the person right behind them to tell you that's the worst fucking barbecue they've ever had in their life. And it's the same brisket, it's the same sauce.
Sounds like wine,
man.
right?
I know.
And so, Eric Repair from La Bernardina, New York, right? He has like the best line ever about that. He's like, if you believe your good reviews, you have to believe your bad reviews. And I've always lived my life as a chef on that comment, because it's so easy to read 50 great reviews, right? And you're like, God, we're awesome. And then you read one bad review and you're calling your chefs, we fucking suck. What's wrong with us?
Yeah.
Why is it? You're like, wait a second. Why did I just discount 50 good reviews for one bad review?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just better not to read crowdsourcing reviews. But I told you guys a little bit earlier, but like, I read reviews when we open a restaurant. I read crowdsourcing reviews for 1 month. That's it. And sometimes it's only 1 week. But 1 month, you know where you stand. 100% you know exactly where you stand. Hey, if everybody's saying it takes too long, hey guys, it's taking too long.
Yeah.
If they're saying your food's too salty, your food's too salty. And so, but after a month, you're never going to go up or down the percentage that you think you need. Like chefs that are like reading the reviews every day, I'm like, the standard's already been met. Like, you know where you stand. Like, this is how people feel about you. So why go through the stress of reading somebody that's telling you you're terrible? Because you never get excited about your good reviews. You only get defeated by your bad reviews. So you just have to find that own personal balance in order to be successful, in my opinion.
I think that was the best description of crowdsourced, how to perceive crowdsourced data that I've heard so far. Because I share a very similar philosophy on that. But I do think that looking at the ones and looking at the fives, like, why? And I'm not talking for like our restaurants. I'm saying as a consumer, if I'm looking, why would I look at those? If I'm looking at the twos and the fours, I'm looking for different things. Was it a service issue, or is the place just really not good overall, from everybody else's opinion? But I mean, there are ways to look at it. I just think like people just go straight to how many people reviewed this and what is the average, and that's as simple as it gets. I like the picture thing, looking at the photos of the food, making sure that they're like
because you know what you
solid.
you know what you want food to look like.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, I got to jump into this because this is one thing I really want to talk about because I'm actually very excited about your new project coming up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know why it took somebody so long to come up with this idea. So can I say the name?
Yeah.
Mexico or Mexico City. City, but Ceaty.
Correct.
And it like you showed me a bit of the concept, told me the story, what you guys are going to have there and everything. But I think you should tell the audience because I think it's just the beginning. It's if Mario Batali did something great with Italy, man, I'll tell you, I'll choose Mexican over Italian all the time, personally.
Yeah, I wrote the concept 13 years ago. Like, I went back through all my kind of like old notebooks because I knew I had it somewhere. I was like, So Mexico City is basically the idea of an emporium of food, of my love and passion of Mexico and the cuisine of Mexico. So this particular concept, we're taking over the food court, the entire food court of the River Center Mall in downtown San Antonio, kind of the iconic space right down on the Riverwalk, 21,000 square foot, 21,000 square foot total renovation, kind of a rebirth of the food court. 3,500 square foot Tex-Mex restaurant, so that's where you're going to get your great chips and salsa, your queso, your fajitas, your crispy beef taco, enchiladas, puffy tacos there in San Antonio. It has a 300-seat bar overlooking the river, the Riverwalk called Dos Cantinas. Then we've got Panaderia doing fresh churros and breakfast tacos, and dolce and coffee. Street tacos. We've got kind of the Baja California burrito stand, and then in the middle of the concept in what we're calling Main Plaza, we've got ceviches and campanchanas. We've got a fruit cup, fruit stand, paletas, aguas frescas, and then we have kind of the tortilla stand where we'll be making fresh corn and fresh flour tortillas right in the middle of the concept.
You said you're going to be handing those out to people walking by?
The idea is like if somebody's walking by and you smell that fresh masa on the plancha, and maybe like a little ramekin of butter. And listen, at the end of the day, like the idea of like a fresh tortilla with a little bit of butter, like salted butter, like to me, I don't know if there's a better like just snack.
Oh, I'm with you on that.
That's my dad all day.
Right, so like it's kind of like the idea is like you give them one tortilla, but then you have 12 for sale on the side.
Yeah,
right? Okay, we'll take some of those. For me, it's the epitome of respecting the culture and the food of San Antonio and Mexico as a whole. Which is such a diverse cuisine. And, I grew up in the Midwest, right? And so, like, my family in central Nebraska and their idea of what Mexican food is very different than what my concept of Mexican food is living in San Antonio for 25 years or traveling through Mexico, whether that's, Guadalajara or Mexico City or San Miguel Allende or Oaxaca. Like, for me, I just wanted to build something that's a legacy project for our family, but also a legacy project for San Antonio and bring people back downtown. And at the end of the day, we talked about is like, why has nobody done this before? I don't know, but I'm sure as hell not upset that nobody's really done it on this scale before.
I think it's awesome that you're doing it. I think it's a huge opportunity. I think it's a great cause, a great reason to do it. And we've seen, it used to be that Mexican food was just kind of thought of as like taquerias, taco trucks, whatever else. And it's been elevating. Every time you find somebody who's taken Mexican food very seriously, it's like, holy shit, your mind's almost blown every time. There's a dish on that menu that you're like, never had anything like it. And that drives a desire for more discovery, I think. So I really love it. I love seeing it. I think maybe the elevation of tequila, the continued elevation of tequila, has helped draw or drive some perception of luxury and the cuisine not just being kind of a casual, quick fix into the American mindset. And whatever the psychology is behind it, I'm all for it. I know you said you're taking over a food court.
Yeah.
It doesn't look anything like a food court. It looks like you've landed in the middle of one of the most awesome places that's going to honor whatever traditions you want to bring from a culinary perspective from Mexico into San Antonio.
Yeah, it's funny because I got a Google alert this morning. Actually, it was from Business Insider, and the headline of the article was like, "Revolutionary project taking over mall food court," and I was like, and I texted our landlord and partners in the deal per se. I said revolutionary. I like that word, which I think is so cool because it showed. I think exactly what you're saying is like people from across the country within the media are seeing that and like, this is a great idea. Like this is really a neat concept that isn't just, it's not one faceted. It's super multifaceted. Plus we have the idea of grab and go. We're right across the street from the convention center, right? We have 6,000 hotel rooms within a 5-block radius of us where we're at. We're right next to Alamo Plaza, which gets 2.2 million foot traffic a year, right? So we've got this, and what I keep saying is what's important to me is that you can come to San Antonio and have a great time, no matter where you go. This allows you to take San Antonio home with you, right? So you come and you're like, oh, we're going to buy 24 tamales during the holidays because that's a tradition of Mexican culture, especially San Antonio Mexican culture or South Texas Mexican culture of having tamales at the holidays. Or you can grab chili paste or salsas or chips or mole paste, brisket, right? Like, so San Antonio is like one of the most famous tacos of San Antonio is from Garcia's on Fredericksburg Road, where they do a brisket taco with a little guacamole. Like, for me, I'm like, well, I do barbecue. I can sell whole briskets, which not only is Texas and San Antonio and South Texas, but it's also Mexican heritage of San Antonio.
Yeah.
So you can take that home with you, and you go back to Missouri or Illinois or Massachusetts or wherever, and you're like, hey, man, we just had the coolest experience we've ever had in downtown San Antonio, and we're bringing it back to you. And I think that's kind of like a very neat part of it and something that we're so excited about for sure.
Yeah, what I love about it is, the area in general is like you just don't need to give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like you can do, there's no walls you have to worry about staying within. It's kind of like, hey, we like this part of these Mexican dishes, this part of the culture of Texas. Let's bring them together and have a little fun with it. I mean, that's and I think that's eventually what's going to bring everybody together because, and generally speaking, food and alcohol is what bring people together, right?
That's awesome right there. Yeah. I love that logo, man. We worked really
that is cool.
That is a
hard
cool
on that
logo.
So we definitely wanted. I've been working on this idea. We'll see how far we can get there with it. But I want to do kind of like from a social media perspective, like because we're kind of in the R&D stage of it right now. I mean, the concept is built, and we've probably got 40 or 50% of the recipes already done. But the idea of like I want to do a social media campaign called the Salsa Chronicles, because again, like we talked earlier today, teaching somebody how to cook or teaching them anything, it has to be tangible to the person, right? I like the idea of like R&Ding our salsa program live in real life, being like, hey, let's try this salsa. Nope, didn't cut it. This salsa, oh my God, this one's because like salsas are all. I mean, there's it's unlimited.
Millions.
Unlimited on what you can do.
Unlimited,
Whether it's a roasted salsa or a salsa crudo or salsa macha or or
Verde.
tomatillos or chile de árbol. Like it's just unlimited on what you can do with it. And I love the idea of trying to help teach people something that they can take home and do themselves, because that's what people want to learn, right? It's like learning via osmosis, right? It kind of ties back into that. Like, let me show you how to do this. You take it home, and now you got a new salsa for your little repertoire for your friends wherever you live. And I get super amped up about it because I'm just so excited about it. I'm stoked. I can't wait.
Well, I think the free tortilla thing, or if you do that, I don't know if you're going to do that. I don't know if that's even legal, but I will say that when I was living down in Mexico when I was younger and just in the middle of like the desert, right? It wasn't like I was like the only white guy in the city. It wasn't even a city where I was at, but city was an hour away. Getting my groceries, I'd go there, and I'd walk down the street. And it wasn't like you went to the supermarket. You'd go to different like little tiendas that would have, you got your tortilleria. You had so everything had a reason, right? You go in, but for tortillas in particular, they'd be out there and they would just give you one. Like, you want corn or flour?
Yeah.
They'd give you one like, mine is better than theirs. Kind of. They didn't say that, but they're like, they're like, yeah, give it a shot.
You want this one, right?
And that's the best way to figure out, like, like I walked through town, had 10 tortillas, and I know that like Tortilleria Maria is the best.
Yeah.
So it's nothing says proof in the pudding like a good sample.
Yeah.
Costco. God.
It's a proven business.
Costco.
It is Costco. Those guys, they didn't do it the right way, but I'm just saying, you go down to Mexico, they do it the right way.
I would like to talk about, obviously you've had so much impact in the restaurant world, but you've also had an impact in the entertainment chef world. You're Iron Chef, you're on Iron Chef, Bobby Flay. I did ask this, but for Joe, I made sure he does not know Guy Fieri.
Oh God,
I've never met Guy.
He never met Guy, but Joe has.
A couple times.
We talked about that. Yeah.
You're nothing like him. I like you.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I want to know, especially with the Iron Chef thing, because I mean it's the competition aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I know you have that competitive nature. You've talked about having. Just what that experience was like, any kind of behind the scene things.
Yeah,
you
for
could
sure. I
share.
mean, the show that I was on was Iron Chef Gauntlet, so there was 7 of us competing to be the next Iron Chef, right? So you have a 1 in 7 chance of having that title of Iron Chef, which arguably, especially from a TV perspective, is the highest that you can get. I mean, you're talking about Morimoto, you're talking about Bobby Flay and Michael Simon and Stephanie Izard, who ended up winning the show. It was an unbelievably great experience. Honestly, we had the best time. Colleagues that I knew, right? Like, and some of my best friends today, still to this day, like Shota Nakajima was, I came out probably being my closest friend out of that. But I had known Stephanie for years. I had known Jonathan Sawyer for years, Michael Gulata out of New Orleans, Naisha Arrington, Sarah Grunberg out of Chicago. I mean, you're talking about like, the best of the best. You're competing against the best of the best.
Yeah.
And that was fun, and it was challenging, but at the end of the day, TV is TV, right? I mean, it's TV's a little bit,
A little Hollywood.
There's always Hollywood,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
I will say this about these cooking shows. My experience with them is in between the buzzer to the buzzer, cooking is real. It's fucking legit. Like they're not telling you what to cook. They're not telling you how to cook it. It's a fair playing field for everybody that's involved.
That's good to know.
If you're
Yeah.
smart about, learning via osmosis, which seems to be kind of what we keep going back to.
Yeah.
Like, everybody gets to walk through the kitchen before the competition starts. So it's like, what are you paying attention to? Are you paying attention to what's on the shelves? Do you know what equipment you have? There's Alton Brown.
Mm-hmm.
That guy.
That guy.
That guy.
Do we?
He's actually the one that booted me off the show. I was the only chef in the competition that was never in the bottom. So I never had to fight for elimination.
Oh.
I came down to the final episode, which was me, Stephanie, and Sarah, and it was kind of a judge's decision per se. If I was to speak politically correct.
Was there some issue
Was
with
he
the,
was he a chef?
Alton Brown is like a TV personality, super smart.
I mean, yeah, I've seen him
probably
on
most
stuff, but
intellectual-
does he have a background of being
I don't know what his. I
in
mean,
the culinary arts?
yeah, I mean, he had Good Eats was his famous show. Like,
Oh.
I mean, listen, and that show's like teaches you a lot about
Yeah.
cooking. Like,
Yeah.
that guy's just an encyclopedia of cooking technique and science. But listen, man, I balled out on that fucking show. Like, not 1 ounce of regret. No, nothing. You know,
Yeah.
it came down to the final episode, which was called 5 ingredients, and which means your dish could only be composed of 5 ingredients. Period.
And how many did you have to choose from?
You could pick anything you want in the whole kitchen.
Okay, right.
You had to predetermine what those were, but you could only pick 5 ingredients. I just took a different approach than the other 2 chefs, and according to Alton Brown, my dish didn't have enough lemon zest, and so be it.
And that was it.
That was it.
Well, hey, good experience.
It
Like you
was-
said.
I would do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I did that, and then I did Beat Bobby Flay right after that because I was on, it was a Food Network
Yeah.
show, so it's
Yeah.
kind of like you parlay off a parlay, right? And then I filmed another show for Food Network that never went to air, and I won. Which I'm like, the one fucking the one fucking show I win doesn't go to air. Like, okay, cool.
So you had mentioned we were talking earlier before the podcast, but you had mentioned kind of I'm curious about, like, is that something you want to go back to, or are you done with the whole, like, in front of camera? Are you enjoying running the business? You
big
got a family.
struggle decision, like
Yeah?
big struggle decision. My big bone to pick is definitely with Top Chef and Bravo. Like, I was supposed to be on season 9 in which was the episode that they filmed in San Antonio in Texas.
Oh,
And I got cut the night before filming. I'd already said bye to my kids. I was packed. I was loaded. I was having dinner with friends, like kind of like our last hurrah. And I got cut the night before, which was, honest to God, like, and this was many years ago. I mean, they're in season 20 something. This was 12, 13, 14 years ago. It was a long time ago. But they've never had a San Antonio chef on the show, and it just fucking drives me crazy.
that would have been a great opportunity.
It was great for our city, and the fact that we still haven't had a chef on the show, it just pisses me off. Like,
Yeah.
it makes me angry that I'm like trying to figure out, like, what does San Antonio have to do to get. I understand that I'm probably the old guy now. I might be too old for it, or maybe I'm too successful for it. I don't know, or maybe I'm not willing to give up some of the contractual rights that you have to do.
Oh, I bet it's way worse now.
So
Well, hey, Bravo, get your head out of your ass.
Yeah.
Get
It's- but
some
it
San
just-
Antonio chefs in there.
it's interesting, but I don't know. Like, if the right listen, I've always said no. Like, I've never done what I consider to be low hanging fruit shows. Right? I'm like, I want to keep my brand at a high level, right? And Top Chef was at the highest level, and the night before get cut, okay, and then Iron Chef comes along. Absolutely, you don't say no to that. I thought I represented myself extraordinarily well. I did a couple bit of shows after that, but the reality of it is, like, once you're off the circuit, you're off the circuit.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not easy to get into the circuit. You got to stay in the circuit. I know it's kind of a complicated, like, answer, but, like,
I could imagine that. That's really an interesting point because
you and so for me, like, if the right show were to come along, sure, okay. Well, also, I'm at a point now. I'm fully capable, if I really wanted to probably. Okay, do I develop my own internet series? Right, like, I
like,
have.
do you want to be the Emerald Lagasse of San Antonio?
Yeah.
Like,
So
that's probably at your fingertips.
yeah, I've always wanted to do a show called 5 for 25 and 25, a family of 5, because I'm a family of 5, for $25 in 25 minutes, right?
Okay.
Because that's something that's passionate for me, and it's tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A family at home watching it, a mother, a father that has a $25 budget per night. I can show you how to go to the grocery store for $25 and in 25 minutes cook a badass meal, whether that's 2 courses or 3 courses or whatever it is. But I also, like you said, I'm running 7 restaurants.
Yeah.
I'm opening a 21,000 foot emporium. Like, what am I supposed to do and how do you do it? Like, for me, my focus in the last couple of years has just been, hey, focus on what you have in front of you and your restaurants and your family. My kids are at that age where, like, listen, I worked my ass off when my kids were young because I knew that they wouldn't remember that daddy wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know, and my rule was always like, when my kids are old enough to call me out, that's when I'm going to pull back.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel now. But now now I'm at the other end. My kids are one in college, one heading to college, 14-year-old son. Like, okay, can I get back into some of that stuff that take up time and effort? But I also, I saw a chef today that I'm not gonna say who it is, but a pretty well-known chef, been on some real big national shows, and he was promoting a product that I was honestly fucking embarrassed for him.
Oh.
I was fucking embarrassed for him because it's just a money grab. And if you're just doing it for a money grab, then you're selling yourself out and you're selling really your clients out, right? Like
Your clients, your legacy, the whole thing. Yeah.
Because, and I do think that happens. There's a fine line to walk of like, hey man, not very many chefs are good on TV. You got to know how to talk. You got to know where to look. You got to know timing. It's very complicated. And this chef has been on some big shit. And I was like, it's a national brand, national commercial. Wouldn't be surprised if he got paid $250,000 for it. Right? Where's your line in the sand?
Yeah.
And every person has to do that. But I can tell you, when I watched that this morning, I was like, ooh, that was real cringe. It was real cringe.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be cringe. I want to be authentic. I want to be authentic.
Yeah.
And I think I can do it authentically and find the brands. But if there's anybody out there that wants to pay me $250,000, I'll be cringe as fuck.
Okay, there we go.
That's it, yeah. So
there is a price.
I know.
Wait, okay, I think the price is $250,000.
I think it's $250. Yeah, that was okay. $250
All jokes
for a
aside.
Boboli pizza.
We'll do it. You want to bring it back?
But I mean,
Well, no, you can't even tell us the product, can you?
Yeah.
No, you'll throw them under the bus.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
no, you
okay.
can't.
off the record, I will. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But you guys understand my point, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
there-
absolutely.
especially when it comes to different TV shows, and listen, I think Guy Fieri. I've never met him. I will say this: I think Guy changed the face of the Food Network.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he has guided it in the recent years in a very positive direction because I think it kind of lost itself. And I know some of my best friends in the world work with him and adore him and love him and think that he has opened a lot of doors for a lot of different chefs. And I think he's been really great for equality and et cetera. But I understand people that might be like, I'm not his biggest fan. I don't know him, so I can't speak on it. But like, I know for me, like Bobby Flay, like I had two really, really bad experiences with Bobby Flay, like very bad. Like, and one of them when I was like a 22-year-old cook, like chef, I was like, wow, like I can't believe it that I was treated that way.
Yeah.
And then, but when I did a show, he also paid me like the greatest compliment. Like when I did a show, I absolutely whooped his ass. I lost on the show, but I whooped his ass.
You're the people's champion.
He knows I whooped his ass. Sorry, Bobby. And he said to me, one of the greatest compliments I've ever been given in my career. He said, nobody has ever come on the show and did what you just did. He was like, that was amazing. And to me, I took that as a great compliment.
Yeah.
And I felt like he meant it. So, at the end of the day, like, we're all personalities.
Yeah.
We're all who we are, and we all work hard, and we all want to be the best, and we all strive for greatness. And, so, TV's an interesting dynamic. I'm not pursuing it the same way I did 6 or 7 years ago, but I'm not opposed to it. I guess that's probably to wrap around to the actual question. Like,
yeah, but you were also talking a little while back about kind of the passion of being in the restaurant world and the passion of being a chef versus the business of the restaurant and chef world. And that's something we have, we're constantly finding and readjusting the balance of, because we want to be big enough to be relevant, but we also don't want to be so big that we're just flooding the market. We want to make sure that we're continuing to kind of keep that element of, just people know that it's luxury wine, that everything we do, we care about. We can adjust price points and that sort of thing, probably similar to what you guys can do on a menu. So you want to kind of slow it down a little bit. Well, we can bring the price up because we don't have enough of it based on how much is selling, et cetera. So I think that there's an interesting point there where you at some point realize that the ego of your 20s segues to the realities of what actually matter in your 30s. I think that's when it hit me. And I started to kind of like, rather than just chase passion projects, it was like, let me refine what I've created and then pick off little things on the side. And instead of just going full like steam ahead on some, crazy, Burgundian escapade. I don't know.
Right.
So, and that's kind of like, how did you find that balance within all of the concepts you've created, and what does that look like from you starting your first restaurant in your 20s to, and that being like very, like today, it would be probably a Michelin-starred restaurant, to today having a number of concepts that cater to such a broad array of demographics and price points. What is that?
I think
what does that look like?
I think two things. Number one, failure, right? Like having a restaurant that failed definitely like changes your perspective. It humbles you. It makes you more realistic. It makes you focused on what's important, which is the bottom line. I think the problem for most young chefs in particular is they don't care about the bottom line enough. They care about, how does my plate look? How do my plates look? Like, how expensive are my plates, right? Like, when you're paying $30, $40 a plate and a server breaks them, or you're dropping a $25 wine stem or whatever, like the bottom line is what's the most important, right? And I think for me, and I'm still not good at it, I'm still not good at it, is that I don't give a shit about profit. I don't. Like, my wife cares insanely about profit.
Is she in the industry?
Yeah, me, my wife, and my brother. It's just the three of us.
But is she a chef?
She's CFO, CMO, C everything O.
Oh, so she's like the big boss.
Yeah. She says I'm the creative and she's the everything else.
She's the logic.
She's everything.
And it's I will defer to her 100% of the time. Like, very rarely am I like, but she feels the same way. She'll defer to me, right? So that's, or my brother is like, hey, listen, like this doesn't work. This doesn't make sense. Like, so we have a really great three-headed monster that kind of we can bounce ideas off of. And like, listen, man, there's been a lot of fights in our family over 25 years of being like, no, yes, this, no, what's the music going to be? I want this, you want this, I want that. Oh, there she is. Look how pretty she is.
Yeah.
Really Jake there. So,
Nice.
I'm fortunate that I have a great executive team, my sales director, my director of operations, my culinary operations manager, Margot, who's been with me for 13 years. But the reality of it is like, it's teamwork for us. And where do we go from here is always based off of conversations. Like, I'm always like, let's go do this. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. The worst thing that could ever happen to us is when my wife and brother are like, okay, we agree with you. I'm like, well, wait, you guys agree with me? I'm just dreaming here. I mean, this project we're doing, this Mexico City project, like, I'm all in. I mean, I'm putting everything I've worked for in 25 years into this project, which is either going to be the greatest decision we ever made or the worst decision we ever made. But all of us feel so passionate about it, and so we feel like it's the right move. We feel like it's a great concept. There are no guarantees, right? It does not matter. That's the thing about the restaurant industry. There are no guarantees. Some of the best restaurants in the world open. Some of the best barbecue restaurants open, and a year in, they don't know how to manage it. They can't control their costs. They're poof, gone.
Yeah.
So we understand that, but we learn that because of failure. We learn that because we've had, I said earlier, I think we've opened 19 restaurants in 25 years. We've had 2 that just were total flops, just failures, just lost our asses. Pick up your, pick it up in boots and just keep on trying to truck along. But those are also the reasons why we're so successful, is because we didn't just wash our hands. We said, what did we do really wrong here? Where could we be a little bit better, right? Like, something as crazy as like, and we talked earlier about like, what do you want to tell young chefs, right? It's like, listen, man, I look at everything in a restaurant like a dollar bill. Like, and that's why I try to tell my teams every day. Everything is a dollar bill. What do you mean, chef? See that napkin over there? That's a linen that costs $1.25, and the bartender is using it to wipe up a spill. They just wiped up a spill with $1.25. That was a dollar bill they just took out of their wallet, well, really my wallet, and wiped up a spill. And one-time use, end of story. I'm like, they could have used 2 Bev naps, which cost 6 cents to wipe it up. So you have to look at everything like a dollar bill, because as you grow, as you scale, those costs become so much more imperative because it grows. All right, it's like, so if you have 10 servers every day wasting 5 linens a day, that's $50 a day. That's just going, that's taking away from your bottom line. And where I was circling around to is like early in my career, I didn't care about profit. I still am not very good at caring about profit because I just love what I do and I'm passionate about it. And I'm like, if we just do what we do and we take care of people, we cook food, we're going to be fine. My wife's like, no, you're a fucking idiot. Like, we have to make money here, real money. And, you know, so now we try to like be like, but we also don't want to be like ridiculous. It's the best word I can use. Like, I don't want to be ridiculous. I don't want to like go to every line cook and be like, here's your 2 towels for the day.
Yeah.
Because then at the end of the shift, their towels look like shit. They're gross. They're disgusting. Like, I want to be, but like, you also want to train them like, hey, be responsible with it. Like, you know, don't, you know, use a disposable if you can use a disposable. So you're trying to teach people how to be profitable. And by teaching them how to be profitable, you're actually giving them the best skill in their career. Because most people, for them, in my opinion, when they get into a restaurant group like ours, I think at the end of their in the back of their brain, their goal is like, one day I want to open my own restaurant.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. And so my goal is to try to teach you how to open your own restaurant. And I'm not going to teach you that if I say, hey, here's 20 linens you can use every day. And you used all 20 of them when you could have used, like, my favorite thing to do in the restaurant is go through the linen bin with like my chefs, my GMs, and be like,
just see how many are still clean.
Yeah, be like, hey man, look, like, walk me through why.
Yeah.
And it's not trying to be petty, right? It's like there's a fine line of like not trying to be petty, but trying to teach them like, hey guys, this is your P&L. This is profit and loss. And you know, I opened my last manager meeting last week with 20 restaurants that had closed in San Antonio in the last 4 weeks. Right.
Wow.
Some of them small mom and pops, some of them corporate Hooters.
Yeah.
You know, these restaurants that were closing nationally. But I opened the meeting just bop, 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 bop. Guys, this is real life. Like this industry is very difficult, and if you don't pay attention to every dollar, you're going to be one of these restaurants that doesn't make it.
Yeah.
And you got to figure that out.
I remember scraping those like the ketchup dispensers and mustard dispensers at like some of the places I would work, and you know, you had your
You had to get
team
every
leader.
drop.
They were like, we're a business of pennies, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and you're scraping it to reuse it because all that, and it's actually kind of amazing once you find out if you just actually took that huge dispenser and just threw it in the wash, all the ketchup that were whatever sauce was in there could be wasted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's not bullshit. It's real.
Every bit of it matters. Well, and I think that pertains to every business, really. I mean, it's just a matter of with the restaurant world, it's just so many things, and like you're not looking at a dozen items. You're looking at 1,000 items, maybe more.
Are they giving you the? Are they telling?
He sees you, Ari. He sees you. Well, before I want to ask this question because I thought it was a great one. That you what is the most unusual ingredient you've ever used, and how did you apply it to the dish that you had?
I would say, this is not a political answer. Okay.
Okay.
No.
I love when it starts off like this.
Me too. I'm like,
we're not talking politics.
That's why I saved it for the end.
I did cook for a young man named Joe Biden one time.
Okay.
And they wanted a San Antonio kind of Mexican-inspired dish. And so I had ordered ants from Oaxaca, Mexico. So there's this very famous mole from Mexico where you grind up the ants and they have like this little like tangy, lemony type of flavor, and you put it into like a mole sauce. And then we made wajit lacoche, like kind of the mush or the corn fungus. It's kind of like the delicacy of Mexican cuisine.
Yeah,
like
I've had that.
It's like it's like a purple fungus. It's kind of like it's like the Mexican truffle they call it. So we did these wajit lacoche enchiladas with this ant mole over the top of it, and that's what we served. Who at the time he was not the president of the United States, but
Did he like it?
I think, listen, it was for 300 people. You know,
Okay,
like, you
yeah.
know, when
Yeah.
you do 300 people, you never know what people like or don't
Yeah.
like.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but I would say like the dried ants from Oaxaca is definitely for me probably the most unique, specific ingredient I've ever cooked with, and like I think it's funny that it went on a dish, and who it was for just kind of like escalated and elevated that to a different level.
Yeah, but that's I mean that is so common and I mean eating insects down in certain parts of Mexico is very common. I mean I've even brought I think there were crickets back.
Yep.
And I ended up putting them. I was making chili one day and I put crickets in it. And finally, one of my kids figured it out.
Oh yeah.
While they're eating it, and freaked out. Nobody touched any more of it. And I was so pissed off at myself because they were good and they were crunchy crickets. They weren't like
If they're
soggy ones. Yeah.
dehydrated, they're pretty good. They're
Yeah.
typically just put on like a little bit of like avocado or guacamole. Like typically is where you
Yeah.
see them. It's just kind of as a salty kind of proteiny type of situation. And
Typically ground up in that case. Oh, I did not grind mine up. Okay. Well, so ant mole,
yeah,
Huh.
dried ant mole. So you received them dried, just ready to be.
yeah, they're just completely
Rehydrated
Yeah,
and-
you just mortar and pestle and just create them to a powder, fold them into a mole sauce.
Was there any other sauce or any other sauce? Sorry,
Is it all-
spices put in there.
No. It was. I mean, the mole obviously has like a bunch of different spices.
Yeah.
So whether it's guajillo chili or pasilla chili and corn tortilla and sesame seed, there they are right there.
Yeah, they're there.
Right
Oh,
there,
whoa.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
we just
exactly
brought
what they
Art
look
just
like.
brought it up on
All right.
screen.
That's exactly what they look like.
Oh, wow.
I love eating crazy things, so I am going
You're
to.
gonna get them, huh?
I'm going
So
to
you're
order
a
some of
huge
these.
fan of Andrew Zimmern, then?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but I like Argentina is one of my favorite places. It's very obviously like beef goat oriented, but I mean they don't believe in vegetables there,
Yeah.
so probably very similar to Nebraska. I had
in
to
the
start
potato, that's
after
it.
like my third trip there. I was like, all right, every meal, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'll be like, can I just get chicken broth with vegetables in it? Because their salads were like going to Europe, where you're like, I'll get a salad. It's like 4 wilted pieces of lettuce, a piece of tomato, and a bunch of charcuterie.
Yeah.
You're like, Jesus Christ. I'm not going to shit for a week. so yeah, that was the thing. But man, they have some great stuff down there. Cow udder was maybe the most interesting thing I've ever eaten.
Wow, man.
It's
never
like
had that.
it's almost like tofu.
Yeah.
Wild. But yeah, fun stuff.
Have you had cow udder?
I'm not an adventurous eater like that.
No?
Like I'm not. I can't do offal at all. I'm not like in like stinky cheeses. Like, and I just think again, it's like explore your palate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I've tried it, but I'm like not for me. You know.
Yeah,
It's not your- not your
Not
go-to,
my
yeah.
meal,
You
man,
expl-
not my
yeah.
meal.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think that's it. At the end of the day, we just got to continue to explore, figure out what you like, what you don't like. That's our mantra too. Go with your palate. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason.
It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Man.
Good to hear your story.
Yeah, fine.
And I really look forward to seeing this new endeavor with Mexico
Yeah,
City.
you're gonna have to come visit.
I will visit. You give me an opening date, and I'm going to come down.
I think he's really looking forward to that surprise you have for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess
Oh, yeah.
I can tell
Yeah.
you. What he
Don't
was-
let me forget. I told you. Don't
I'm
let
not
me
saying
forget.
that's why I brought it up right now. I did my job right there. It's done. Make sure he gets it.
All right. Well, signing
cool.
off. Thank you.
This is us. All right.
Going with your
Peace.
palate.